Good morning, my friends. I'm loving the energy in the room. Aren't you great? Love it. This is what it's all about. Conversation and connecting. But we're about to start our next session. So can I ask everybody to take a seat with me? And those of you coming into the room, would you please come up to the front? Aside from the fact that I can't see you, we're actually going to have a really important conversation, and it's easier for you if you're just coming into the room to come and sit up the front. It makes it more cozy. Please do that for me. Hello and welcome to everybody online as well. If you have not seen me this morning, I'm going to do a very brief audio description. You know me at this stage. I'm Caroline Casey, the Irish woman who is the timekeeper and moderator and troublemaker of this conference. I am wearing a electric yellow lemon suit, indeed I am, and a purple polo neck, and I am a white woman with blonde hair and very thick black-rimmed glasses. So you're welcome into the room. This session is going to run in two parts, and it is about the Global Disability Summit that will be happening in April of next year, between the 2nd and the 3rd of April next year. We're going to run this in two sections, and I said the first is we're going to hear from our three co-hosts of the Global Disability Summit. They're each going to speak from their own point of view. So our co-hosts are IDA, the German government, and the government of Jordan. So we are delighted to be joined by the leaders of the commissioners and the leaders of the GDS. But after that, and this is the real reason for this, we want to hear what you believe will help and make the Global Disability Summit, because it's the third of the Global Disability Summit, interactive, engaging, representing and speaking about what it is that matters to us and to you, organization of people with disabilities. Just to set the scene, as I said, this is the third of the Global Disability Summits. The first I was at in the UK, and that was in 2018. And the second one was in Norway, and we are now going to be going to Berlin. What's really important about this is the Global Disability Summit, or the GDS, is a mechanism to raise global awareness and visibility of inclusive disability, inclusive development, and humanitarian action to everyone, everywhere. It's about bringing people from regionally, locally, and globally to come together, to act together, to work on commitments together for long-term sustainable change that we want to see, and the ownership, most importantly, of disability organizations and disability activists like everybody here in the room. And it's really important that this session is here at the Zero Project. Everything about what we do must collaborate with each other. We must join the dots with each other, and that is where we will get that unstoppable force that nobody can ignore. And it is wonderful to see that this is the first time GDS are making their name known for this 2025. This is their launch session for this, and asking for your input at Zero. Because right at the heart of GDS is about collaboration, about galvanizing and mobilizing collective action together. We know the importance of physical meetings and connections. We know what that feels like, right? That's why these events are so important. So this one, we want you to put in your calendar, and please bring up your voice and be thinking of questions as our hosts of the GDS will go through the reason why they choose to host this and their expectations and their hopes. So without further ado, you've heard enough from me, I am going to invite our first host, and I'm going to, for once, read out somebody's title, because I'm really scared, because they're very important, that I'll get it wrong. So bear with me, I have to take my glasses off. Okay. I'm very honest, as you know. So Our very first one is Mr. Hans-Peter Bauer, Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, Commissioner for Global Disability Summit 2025. You are very welcome to take the stage.
Yeah, thank you very much, Caroline Casey, for your friendly introduction. Your Royal Highness, dear colleagues and allies, we are very much honored to be here as a joint team with all co-hosts of the Global Disability Summit on 2nd and 3rd of April 2025 in Berlin. That is Jordan, the International Disability Alliance, and Germany. And hosting GDS 25 is really a true privilege together with our valued partners and friends. We see Jordan as one of the pioneers of inclusion, as one of the first countries to sign the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Jordan's track record in disability inclusion is remarkable, particularly thanks to its groundbreaking legislation. Moreover, we have a common history of successful cooperation on disability inclusion. Together we work, for example, for the time being on establishing an inclusive school system in Jordan. And of course, we value IDA's global and committed advocacy for the inclusion of persons with disabilities and the pivotal role as a permanent co-host of the GDS. We are very confident that with such outstanding partners, GDS will be a turning point for inclusion globally, which also, and that's, I think, very important, which also lives up to the crucial principle, nothing about us without us. It is therefore mandatory that IDA is in the driver's seat at all processes of the GDS 25. So, why has Germany decided to become a co-host for GDS? Germany has ratified the UNCRPD in 2009. With this, we promise to protect and to promote the rights of persons with disability, also in international cooperation efforts. We believe that disability inclusion is a human right and an obligation for us all. And therefore, Chancellor Scholz did not hesitate when Prime Minister Støre from Norway proposed to take over after an, I think, exciting summit in 2022 and continue to the success story of global disability summits. So, and please let me assure the Chancellor already announced his participation in the upcoming summit and is personally really committed to make GDS 25 a remarkable success. So, ladies and gentlemen, now is the time to get engaged for inclusion worldwide. There are more than 1 billion people with disabilities worldwide, most of them living in developing countries. And for far too long, persons with disabilities have faced barriers to full participation in society. Barriers that are not only physical, but also relate to attitude, to society and system. And the impact of crises, whether natural disasters, armed conflicts, or pandemics, highly affect peoples and persons with disability. We have all witnessed this during the COVID-19 pandemic and in the various crises around the world again and again. Counting from GDS 25, we have just 5 years left to achieve the goals of the Agenda 2030. So we are committed more than ever to ensure that truly no one is left behind. And it is very crucial, for my understanding, that this momentum for inclusion will remain a central pillar in any post-2030 agenda. And ahead of GDS 25, IDA, Jordan, and Germany have reformed the GDS commitment mechanism. We are very convinced that individual and joint commitments of states, organizations, and companies lie at the heart of the GDS. The call for commitments will be launched this summer, and we would love to see a record-breaking number of committed partners and pledges that have the power to transform lives. And I kindly ask each of you to encourage your governments, your organizations, your companies to join us in promoting disability inclusion by making commitments ahead of GDS 25. And to conclude, I would like to stress one point. Full inclusion cannot be achieved by a single actor. First and foremost, inclusion of persons with disabilities needs allies, campaigners, and partners. Each and every individual is needed. And so this conference, ZeroCon24, is a wonderful opportunity for us to learn from one another, to share best practices, to establish partnerships that will drive meaningful change. So, if you would like to become engaged in the Global Disability Summit 25, let's exchange. And of course, we invite you to travel to Berlin next year to come together with decision makers that share the same goal as we all, creating sustainable and meaningful change for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Bauer. Sorry for that coughing attack. But the most important thing I think you have stated is that none of this can be done by one actor alone. And I think that is the power of this. It's this exclusion crisis facing this community requires not just one government, not just one business, not just one activist, not just one not-for-profit. It requires us all. And just thank you for your leadership. And we know how hard the team has been working for nearly, it feels like years now. So thank you so much for that. And Berlin, what a great city, right? I mean, a city that has creativity and energy. So thank you so much, Commissioner Bauer. Come on, exactly. Come on, let's go party in Berlin. So to our second host, who is actually a friend of the Zero Project, and it's wonderful to have His Royal Highness back. You are so welcome. But I'm going to read out your proper title, Your Royal Highness. So we are delighted to have representing Jordan here to speak about Jordan's commitment to the Global Disability Summit 2025. His Royal Highness Prince Murad, am I right? Murad Rad Ziad Al Hussein, please forgive me, President of the Higher Council for the Rights of Persons with Disability, a dear friend, a leader with a great heart. It's wonderful to have you back.
How about now? Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be back in Vienna and to see so many wonderful friends, especially Martin Essel. You're a real champion. Michael Fembeck and all the Zero Project team and all the wonderful participants. It's really, truly wonderful to be here. And I think this is our 6th or 7th time we take part, my colleagues and I, at the Zero Project. So it's really wonderful. I'm also extremely proud that we are co-presiding over the Global Disability Summit next year with our dear partners, Germany and IDA. It's really, truly a wonderful experience to be working with them. And as you may imagine, the ball has been rolling now for some time, and we have dived in deep into all the issues with our partners, and everything is in full swing, as they say. I myself today, I've chosen not to talk too much about the details. I will leave that to my colleagues and friends. I thought I would just touch upon certain overarching matters and viewpoints that I believe are important. I think what we must remember about the Global Disability Summit next year is that it's not just a regular get-together. It's not just an ordinary conference. It's a summit, after all, and it's a summit that will be attended by world leaders. And in that sense, it will be a very special event. To my knowledge, please correct me if I'm mistaken, but to my knowledge, it will be the first time that world leaders will congregate and discuss and deliberate issues related to the rights of persons with disabilities. So it's really, it will be a momentous occasion. And I truly believe it's an opportunity that must not be dashed. That will be a colossal shame if we don't grasp the opportunity and really try to make the most out of it. So the impact of the summit has to be remarkable. It has to be remarkable. At least that's what our goal should be. Hopefully it will be a watershed moment, an inflection point where from then on things will really start to change. So the pressure is on for us to get all the right messages across to the world leaders as clearly and as succinctly as possible, leaving no room for doubt or speculation, that disability rights must be respected and the inclusion of persons with disabilities the norm everywhere. The world leaders who will attend the GDS next year must go home feeling energized and giddy with excitement, ready to institute needed change. That's what it's all about, in my humble view. So the question is how? How do we achieve the above? What issues should we bring up? And how do we present them in a way that will be captivating, intellectually enthralling, and convincing? In my view, I believe we must address the elephant in the room, and that is the great divide, the gulf that exists between the developing world and the developed world as it relates to disability. If this is not addressed, how in heaven's name will children with disabilities and adults in the developing world ever find their place in the sun? How? What can be done to encourage countries in the developing world to leapfrog ahead systematically and cleverly and incrementally in a sound way? Is this at all possible? We must believe so. For some countries it will be easier than others, of course, but we must believe that all countries can make and must make headway. In many or most developing countries, and in several developed countries, ashamedly, persons with disabilities are often at the bottom of the ladder. They feel marginalized, helpless, forgotten, dismissed, and for all intents and purposes are invisible. This, I believe, has to change. It is incumbent upon all of us to turn things around at the GDS 2025, if not sooner. We must seize the opportunity that lays before us. I humbly submit to you that there are two main ways that this could possibly be done. First and foremost, developing countries must take ownership of the problem to the greatest extent possible. By this I mean that developing countries must adopt a serious approach vis-à-vis disability rights and inclusion that entails providing the necessary leadership that is enlightened, emboldened, and informed from the highest levels of government, legislating a new law that is compliant and on par with the CRPD, if such a law doesn't already exist, providing the human resources that are needed to get cracking, formulating a national strategy and an operational plan that are both implementable, realistic, and well-funded, allocating funds from the national budget for developing countries, establishing a national entity to draft disability policies and provide oversight and to monitor progress, including persons with disabilities and their organizations in all decision-making and throughout all the phases, etc., 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 etc. If all these elements of ownership that I have just mentioned, and more are undertaken, the likelihood that donor support would be forthcoming would be that much higher. It will not guarantee donor support as other factors come into play, but the chance or probability that support will be there will be higher. The ABCs of ownership are well known, and it is not rocket science. All that is needed is good leadership and a serious approach. Secondly, on the other side of the equation, the donor community, donor countries and organizations must make all their grants and support inclusive, disability sensitive. Just like gender is always a condition and a stipulation, and rightly so, disability should also be. There invariably can always be a disability component in any or most large-scale grants. This insistence must be made a condition by the donor. The adoption of these two approaches by the developing world embracing ownership and the developed world providing assistance that is always disability sensitive will make a world of difference. It takes two to tango. I thank you all for listening and hope that you all take part in the summit next year, if not physically, by all means virtually. My best wishes to you all.
Thank you, Your Royal Highness. Well, you've put that to us. You want it to be remarkable. You want us to come away energized and giddy. But in the same way Commissioner Bauer was speaking about it, we can't just have one actor. I think this piece that you speak about integrating disability inclusion into the donor's mindset, it's part of, it's not rocket science. Yeah. Thank you for your passion. And thank you for your friendship here. It's wonderful to have you back. And we look forward to seeing you in Berlin.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And another dear friend of ours. Here he is, Jose Maria Vieira. It's wonderful to have you back. You have just been recently appointed as the Interim Executive Director for the International Disability Alliance. You're a friend of ours for a long time. It is wonderful to have you. Please put a round of applause and welcome to Jose Vieira.
Now it's on. Dear colleagues and friends of the Zero Conference, dear Royal Highness, dear Commissioner Bauer, friends and brothers and sisters connected online. On behalf of the International Disability Alliance, we come today with a sincere conviction that the Global Disability Summit that we are going to co-host next year in Berlin would be once again the opportunity to come together and show to the world that when certain preconditions are met, and I will be speaking about those preconditions in a minute, we can really make a difference on the life of persons with disabilities. For IDA, working in one of the most important agendas, which is to advance the rights of persons with disabilities, cannot be done by ourselves and cannot be done just trying to promote rights of persons with disabilities in different countries around the world. We have learned that if we want to have a full and meaningful implementation of the CRPD, we need to do more. We need to be innovative, we need to work in partnership, we need to identify what contributions each of us can make. And I think the GDS, since its creation in 2018, is the best example of how joint effort and partnership can translate into real change in the life of persons with disabilities. But of course, for the GDS to be successful, there are certain things that needs to happen before. And from the perspective of IDA, one of those preconditions, there are many, but some of them are first to understand that GDS give us the unique opportunity to join forces with committed governments, civil society, NGOs, and most importantly, as Commissioner Bauer mentioned, the driving seat that OPDs should have for processes like this. We understand, and it's a shared vision among the three co-hosts, and on behalf of IDA, we are thankful to Germany and Jordan, that the opportunity that we have as OPDs to drive this change is unique. We, as persons with disabilities, have the chance to define or to contribute to define the themes for the Global Disability Summit. We, persons with disabilities, have the space to have our own civil society forum where our voices and perspectives can be heard. We, persons with disabilities, within the GDS, have the opportunity not just to meet for 2 or 3 days in Berlin next year, but to conceive GDS as a cycle of 3 years, full of different important moments and achievements. And we just need to look back to the GDS 2018 and 2022 to see that many players have came together, made commitments, participate in the summits, and remain committed to implementing those pledges. Couple of, for me, good examples and should inspire all of us are the commitments made in 2018 by the World Bank, are the commitments made by FCDO UK in 2018 and reinforced in 2022, the creation of the Assistive Technology Scale Partnership, the most developed and advanced global partnership on assistive technology, is another example where the UN, governments, civil society, OPDs came together to advance the agenda on assistive technology, and that is exactly what we really aim for from the GDS. Commitments made by the European Union, commitments made by USAID, and many others, Nordic countries, and countries around the world, are good examples of how we can inspire each other and we can perceive GDS as a mechanism to collect and implement meaningful commitments. But GDS is already a lot with commitments and great summits. But GDS is more than that. It's the opportunity to participate, it's the opportunity to come together. The GDS has a defined and very important role for OPDs in promoting commitments, in follow-up and monitoring the implementation of the commitments. It's a fantastic complementary tool to advance the CRPD and the SDGs. But that's not all what the GDS is about. The GDS is actually a change maker in the way that we conceive disability inclusive development. We, as persons with disabilities through our representative organizations, always under the CRPD in general, but particularly Article 32, Article 11, and other articles of our convention, reminds ourselves of our commitment to hold governments accountable for more inclusion of persons with disabilities. But GDS is that tool that can transform our duties and our commitments to implement the CRPD in a practical runway to actually change the life of persons with disabilities. GDS is the platform for political commitments, but also for financial compromises, for concrete commitments, for commitment with high quality, with commitments that we can track and measure the progress, with the opportunity to participate and raise our voices. In summary, I would say that the GDS is always an opportunity to come together and transform words into practice. And that is the invitation that we would like to make, and I'm sure that I'm going to be joined by my two co-hosts, Germany and Jordan, because that change is only possible if everybody in this room and connected online not only participate, but help us in this multiplying effect to bring more commitments, more people with disabilities, more stakeholders to advance the CRPD implementation around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jose. I think the things that stand out for me from what you're saying is about holding our countries to account. The multiplying effect of joining all of those dots. Accountability, each to ourselves, what we do as individuals of persons with disability to each other, and to the accountability of the CRPD. And this is a moment, and it's what we make of it and how we choose to turn up. So thank you so very much. Now, as I said, we're going to move into the next section, which is to really get you asking, telling, commenting, advising how we can make this GDS 2025 that inflection point that His Royal Highness was speaking about, that remarkable moment that Jose was saying, that we truly hold ourselves and our governments to account, that we cannot do it alone, as the Commissioner was saying. Now, the Commissioner Bauer and His Royal Highness are still here in the front, but they have handed over more voices, because this is not just about people at the top, but it's about everybody involved. So we have two panelists representing Jordan and Germany. So we have Mr. Rafa Tek, BMZ Deputy Commissioner for the GDS. You are very welcome. And Ms. Gadir Al-Harez, HCD Jordan. So they're here to answer any questions along with Jose that you might like to ask or comment. Now, as you also all know, I am visually impaired and I can't see you, so hands being raised is going to be very difficult. So I have my wonderful friend here, Greta, who is part of the Global Disability Summit team. So she is going to do the spotting for questions. So I'm going to ask anybody to shout and raise a hand so we can both see and hear you, to ask any questions you have from your panel. So has anybody got a question? Okay, I'm going to do the running. Go. Where am I going? Or come up to me. Here. Here we go. Okay, so would you do me and say your name, your organization, and then your question?
Hello, Caroline. Brendan Ward from Ireland.
Oh my God, how are you, Brendan Ward?
Nice to meet you, Caroline.
Great to meet you. Never knew you were here, but how's it going?
The Irish are taking over.
For sure.
Ask my question.
Is that your question?
My question is, the Roman Catholic Church undertook a massive survey of Catholics around the world to gauge the grassroots opinion of the future of the Church. Now, I don't propose we try to outdo Pope Francis, but I would love to find out, how can we survey grassroots people with disabilities around the world to help make sure that their priorities and their voice feed into this important summit next year?
Great question. Okay, Jose, Rafa, any ideas? Who wants to answer that question?
I will give it a try.
We can all give it a try. We may not have the answer, but it's actually a genuinely really important question. Go for it.
So we really want to make sure that this summit will be around nothing about us without us. So this is why we already elaborated IDA as a permanent co-host of GDS. IDA as being an umbrella organization for OPDs is holding OPD consultations worldwide. This process is going on. We expect to get a first report of these consultations in April. And this report will also set cornerstones regarding the top themes of GDS 2025. So the topics we will be mainly addressing. So OPDs have a major voice in this program, in this process, and will not be overheard. The consultations are not the only possibility to engage. We will have regional summits later on this year. And of course, we are always open for any advice, for any questions people and organizations might raise ahead of 2025.
Kadir or Jose, anything to add? Thank you, Rafa.
Thank you, Caroline, and thank you, Rafael, for your answer. As Rafael mentioned, IDA is currently carrying out different consultations, a lot of them at national level, regional level, mainly securing always that underrepresented groups are present and fully included, that all those consultations are consultative and inclusive, And we really have emphasized that holding productive consultations is not just about having a survey or an online form where people can upload themes, but rather an interactive dialogue where people can express what their priorities are, but even more importantly, how they can contribute for this change that we have been talking about today. And secondly, how they can support others who are willing to make that change and perhaps don't know how. So in summary, we are focused now as the permanent co-host to bring to the GDS co-host team themes that we are collecting from the disability community. But also, moving forward, we will continue holding events in different regions of the world to ensure that OPDs can meaningfully participate in GDS, and even beyond April next year, how OPDs can be meaningfully incorporated, involved in the commitment implementation. So if you see the three co-hosts, but particularly Germany and Jordan, has allowed AIRA to take a leading role in bringing the priorities of persons with disabilities, in ensuring meaningful participation during the process, and also thinking in the future how we as OPDs can support the implementation of the commitments.
Thank you, Jose. Kadir, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. And from our part in Jordan, we are also committed to go also to support the involvement of everybody in creating and developing the themes. So Jordan will be hosting like 2 webinars in addition to a regional summit that will include, in addition to the Arabic world, the Asia as well as part of North Africa, in order to be able to discuss and further elaborate more on disadjusted themes that they believe to be of their concern. So this will help us also to narrow down, go away from very much general themes and make it more specific according to the needs of either the government or also the civil society and the OPDs.
Okay, thank you all very much. I'm just wondering, is this a wild idea? Can we learn from what Brendan was saying Pope Francis did? I mean, is that a blueprint for us to also maybe see how they did it and reinvent the wheel and maybe adopt what they have also done as a way to see if we, you know, like if somebody's already done it once, could we learn from them as well? And is that worth reaching out? I mean, this is the point, learning from what other people have done. And thank you for that question, Brendan. It's probably the most important question because it's like joining up the dots all around the world and making sure the disability voice is at the table. Okay, next question. Oh, we have somebody. Okay.
Hello. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. My name is Mohammed Lutfi. I'm G3ICT Director for Capacity Building and Advocacy. It's a pleasure to be here. My question is about how we want to make sure that GDS next year is not conducted in silos from what's happening on other platforms or other levels. Especially this year is marking the launch of the Pact of the Future by the United Nations Summit for the Future in September. G3ICT is about to launch a campaign on Global Digital Compact, which is part of the Pact of the Future. We want to see issues of technology, digital inclusion and accessibility addressed, in addition to other issues such as data and evidence-generated data, especially coming from organizations of persons with disabilities, to be addressed. We want to see things moving forward. We don't want to keep repeating the same thing every time we go to conferences. So we want to see things that are really embedded in the system and the mindset of donors, as Prince Raad truly and correctly said. So how are we going to address that, practically speaking?
Great question. I think probably the most important that we're not constantly recreating the wheel and repeating and the choir talking to the choir, which is why I was suggesting, can we learn from what the Catholic Church did in trying to engage? But how are we going to make sure this doesn't operate in a silo? So the question is, how can we connect it to other mechanisms that are happening around the world, whether it's business, whether it's technology, whether it's about policy, whether it's the Future Summit. I mean, is disability playing a key role in the UN Future Summit? Who would like to answer that question?
Again, I will give it a start, if I may.
Okay, off you go.
Actually, overcoming silos is one of our main ambitions here. The Sustainable Development Goals and the Agenda 2030 are all about leaving no one behind. But when it comes to disability inclusion, I think we have to somehow admit that this ambition was too often not be put into practice in the past and still is not often today. We've seen this with regard to COVID-19, to natural disasters, to the situation in Ukraine right now, and sometimes in international cooperation, in humanitarian assistance, they seem to be a different arena from disability inclusion, and this is what we have to overcome also through GDS 2025. So what we plan to do, or what we are willing to do, is like make disability inclusive development planning a standard for every project and program. So mainstreaming is one of the core topics here. Secondly, we have to overcome, of course, funding gaps. And this is why we will raise commitments and pledges, and we are actively pushing this topic. And thirdly, we want to make sure that disability inclusion has to become or be a major topic in any post-2030 agenda. So this is also one of our expected political outcomes of GDS 2025.
I mean, absolutely, because the fact that disability wasn't mentioned in the Millennium Development Goals and it is very lightly around the Sustainable Development Goals, I mean, this is an absolute, right? I mean, an absolute. But it's not even just that, it's into the other sectors. Mm-hmm. So do either of you want to comment on other sectors, what's happening in technology, for example, or business? What do each of you think? How we can ensure that that is integrated? Because this is the most important thing, is to integrate disability into every moment of everyday life.
Perfect. Thank you, Caroline, and thank you, Mohammed, for your question. I think in the first three interventions, we have heard quite frequently the word partnership. And that is because the GDS 2025 as a concept we have decided to prioritize partnership because we understand that we cannot do this alone. So actually, in the margins of the Zero Conference, we have held our third planning workshop where we focused on discussing how to address partnerships, how to include the private sector, how to include different sectorial agendas. It is clear that when we look at the global indicators to measure the SDGs, out of 231, only 11 have reference to people with disability, and only 2 out of those 11 are actually collecting data on persons with disabilities. It's clear that we need to advance on sectoral agendas like data, and my colleague Rafael already talked about the Pact of the Future and the Summit of the Future, and the need for more inclusive development language and persons with disabilities references in those documents. But again, I think this is a joint effort from the GDS. We are committed to make it interactive, to make it attractive, to see the GDS as a platform for promoting partnership. We are committed to have this role of facilitator and convener, because we believe in the convening power of GDS to transform the agenda.
Thank you, Jose. Kadir, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, just quick remark. Since the beginning of the first meeting with the co-host, we ensured that this summit has to be different from the other. We have to build on the results of the first and the second summits, but we need to bring something unique to this summit. And that's why, as His Royal Highness mentioned, the ownership, the national ownership. Without the national ownerships, you cannot guarantee that there is commitments will move from words into action. And that's why, while we are preparing, we are trying to advocate for, through our meetings, that each country, before submitting any commitment, it has to go from what the country has to do first in order to guarantee that the additional support that you will get from the other supporting countries, donor community, will go into the right track. there will become kind of reliable relationship between the country in the global north and with the countries from the global south, because there is a trust, there is reliability, there is governance to the whole process. So this is what we are keen to achieve within this process, and having the heads of countries attend the GDS, we believe that this is a unique opportunity to make the wow effect, to let them see something different, and things that they thought it is impossible, it can be done, and this is a really difficult thing to achieve, and that's why we are now making consultation how to make this wow effect happen in order to convince the leaders to be more politically involved within the system. Thank you.
Okay. You're going to get all those leaders there, aren't you? Right, good here. Okay. Okay, we have one more question. Do you have time for one more question? Yeah. Off you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is such a great pleasure to be here. I am Elvana Shala, the Goodwill Ambassador for Kosovo at the International Human Rights Commission, such as the first diplomat with disability in Kosovo. By being agreed with all the topics that we discussed here, I want to hear from the panelists as well. One of the most challenges and difficulties in the world is employment about the people with disability. So I would like to know, how can the Global Disability Summit help resolving this challenge and this issue for all the people with disability all over the world? Because as we know, being employed and being empowered financially is one of the most important goals for each of us, I guess. So, and we are aware how difficult it is for a person with disability to find its own job beside her or his education that we have. So I'm very much interested to know how we can help to resolve this challenge, which is, especially after the pandemic, one of the most difficult things that we have to resolve all over the world, and how can this GDS help to resolve this issue? Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm just going to take a second question, if that's okay. So how are we going to resolve the employment crisis and integration into the economic system? Okay, so that's one. Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marcy Roth. I'm with the World Institute on Disability and the Global Alliance for Disaster Resource Acceleration. It's wonderful to be here with you all. We're very much looking forward to supporting the summit next year. We are calling for a global commitment to humanitarian action that is directed to disability-led organizations on the ground in disasters. Humanitarian assistance never quite makes it to these local leaders, and 16% of the global population are people with disabilities. We would like the summit to champion the opportunity for all humanitarian assistance to commit 16% to directly go to disability-led organizations who are supporting their whole community in emergencies, disasters, climate, and conflict. Is that something you all, I know the GIZ folks are already talking about this, and we're looking to you all to support this 16% directly to disability-led organizations.
Thank you, Marcy. Great to see you, by the way. Sorry, I didn't see it was you.
You too.
16%. There we have a challenge, and I think that is a direct challenge from the disability community. Can we do that, guys? 16%. So we have our first challenge from Marcy Roth, and then the second one is, how are we going to handle the issue of employment? Who would like to go first? Jose, let's try it. 16% possible. I know you're there. I can see you. But we're going to get the 16% on the employment. Okay, promise.
We
have to be quick here.
We can even ask 16% for everything.
I like it.
GDP
Of
for
all
inclusive
budgets.
development.
Yes, King. Yes, absolutely.
16%.
I mean, wouldn't that be incredible?
16% of budget for inclusive education, 16% for...
Yeah, keep going.
So, yeah, and the list can be long, and I'm sure many people in this room will
And
join
wouldn't
me
that be a wow factor? Would that not be a remarkable moment? Can we
Indeed.
go on 16%? Possible? We can start with disaster, at least. But I
Indeed.
like a campaign for that. What do you think? Gadir, 16% you want wow?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. Anybody on employment before they pull me off this stage?
Very, very quickly, we as co-host of the Global Disability Summit 2025 understand the importance of employment. We actually discussed this week with colleagues from the private sector how to make that happen, understanding that employment has different angles, different perspective. It's about creating jobs for a person with disabilities, but it's also learning how to speak the language of employers, is learning how to engage with employers, how to see employers as partners, etc., etc. So we are definitely committed, and because the disability community has told us already that we would like to see employment issue addressed during the Global Disability Summit. So we are committed among the three co-hosts to find a significant space to discuss employment and private sector engagement in the Global Disability Summit next year.
Excellent. Now, as I have to wrap up, just before I wrap up, because you never get an Irish woman off the stage, I first want to say thank you so much to all of you for sitting in here and having a truly interactive session. Thank you. That is really important. I just want to quickly nod up and say, so the question is, how are we going to make sure we have the voices of the disability community? How are we going to make sure there's no silos? How are we going to recognize employment? And finally, 16% of everything. Nothing without us, as Yasmin Al-Arsh would say. So as I close this off, I'm going to give you each, and I literally mean 10 seconds about your hope for this summit, your gut hope. And Jose, I'm starting with you, and it's literally 10 seconds, so it's 2 words. Go.
Let's do it all together.
Do it all together. Karit.
GDS 2025 will be a turning point in the life of persons with disabilities.
Turning point in wow. Raphael.
We want to create a spirit and awareness not only among those who are already convinced, but also among those who still doubt.
Excellent. Can you put a round of applause, please, to everybody? Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Royal Highness. Thank you, you guys. Could I just ask, could the Global Disability Summit team stand up? Our friends are around. They will be here. So listen, for those of you, because we could only get to 3 or 4 questions. We're here to have conversations. Global Disability Summit, stand, please. Can we give them a shout and a clap? Come on, everybody. They're dying to take all of your ideas. We are making this different. This is going to matter. These are the people to talk to. 16%. Off we go. Thank you so much. I'm finished. Goodbye.